Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Military Money Manual podcast. Today on the podcast, Jamie and Spencer, that's me, from militarymoneymanual.com, are joined by Jerry Quinn. Jerry Quinn is the Chief Operating Officer and Secretary of Armed Forces Mutual, also known as AAFMAA, AAFMAA, and he just retired from his position in the U.S. Army Reserve. At AAFMAA, he oversees all operations of life insurance, including new business, policy services, member benefits, and survivor assistance services. And we get into all the details about term life insurance and when it can be most appropriate for you. We also bring up whole life insurance as well on this episode. Jerry brings in more than 25 years of experience in the financial services industry, and he retired at over, I think he hit 40 years in the U.S. Army. We get into details of that in the podcast. Served in various command and staff assignments, deployments in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom, Desert Storm, Panama, Homeland Defense missions in the United States, and has a bachelor's in finance from Colorado State University and an MBA with an emphasis in organizational design from the University of Colorado. Jerry joined us on the podcast again to talk about all things life insurance today, SGLI, how much life insurance you need, what military service members should be thinking about when it comes to life insurance. It was a great episode, and I hope this serves as the cornerstone podcast episode in our repertoire about life insurance. So without further ado, here is our conversation with Jerry. Jerry, thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Nice to see you today, Spencer and Jamie. Thanks for having me.
So I wanted to set the stage, set the table, and let you talk about yourself a little bit, which I know is, it's difficult for you as an executive, but somehow you'll get through this part. But tell us about your military background and then how you ended up working at AAFMAA, which has now been rebranded as Armed Forces Mutual.
Our actual name is the American Armed Forces Mutual Aid Association. We were originally founded 146 years ago as the Army Mutual Aid Association, founded in the War Department, a predecessor to the Department of Defense, when the War Department realized that soldiers needed life insurance. Shortly after the Battle of Little Bighorn, and life insurance for service members was something that they knew we needed. The Army Mutual Aid Association was founded back then. Today, we are Armed Forces Mutual. We're proud to be Armed Forces Mutual because we have an exclusive charter to serve only military and veteran families. And so we have this very unique, carved out, specially built, specially designed life insurance, about 6 or 7 very unique products that are designed specifically for military, veterans, retirees, and their families, because that's who we have to serve. Our charter requires us to serve that population. We all know in the military, many of us perform duties that are hazardous occupations. So many types of professions have their own unique life insurance. Armed Forces Mutual is the military and veteran version of the military's life insurance outside of SGLI. And I hope we get to talk a little bit about SGLI and the tremendous value that provides to military families. A little bit about me. I joined the Army in 1985 as an enlisted guy, was looking for a college fund. I come out of a really big family. I have 12 brothers and sisters, 13 of us in all. I needed to figure out a way to pay for college. Uncle Sam had a pretty good deal for me at the time, and so off I went into active duty. Spent a few years active duty, 7 years in total active duty, transitioned to the National Guard, was able to finish my college degree just as I planned. Shortly after that, they sent me to officer candidate school, and I got my commission, and I was commissioned a field artillery officer, where I spent the next 29 years. And I just retired last month, June 14th, 2025, on the Army's 250th birthday. It also happened to be my 40th anniversary of my enlistment. So glad to be done, proud to have served with this team, proud to be part of the brotherhood and sisterhood of warriors that got to participate in defending America's Constitution.
I think after 40 years, on behalf of a grateful nation, we can all say thank you. And job well done. I mean, 40 years that's an impressively long career. So you mentioned in there SGLI. Maybe that's a great place to start, because one of the questions we get from our listeners and our readers is, first of all, they want to know, is SGLI a good deal? And should I be using SGLI? And where does it fit in my portfolio and my insurance needs?
SGLI is a guaranteed life insurance policy for every service member, and it has a rider on there for your spouse. And both of them, you get your full amount of SGLI insurance, Service Members Group Life Insurance, $500,000 term policy, and you get the $100,000 term policy for your spouse automatically. It's a little over $30 a month for $500,000, and then there's a extra payment for your spouse insurance. The service member can decline that or reduce that, but they have to take action to do that. They have to specifically take an overt action. I do not recommend that for anyone. There's very rare cases where people don't need any life insurance whatsoever. I hope we have an opportunity to talk about the reasons why people need life insurance, because life insurance has not been around for millennia and is not a part of families' estate plans far and wide across this country because it's not effective. Life insurance is an effective planning and protection tool that we need to be sure all of our service members and their families know about and have adequate coverage in, to give them the peace of mind, the protection, so that they can build their wealth and they can design their career and they can have assurances that if something were to happen to them before any of us expected, that your kids are taken care of, that your spouse can maintain their quality of life and that kind of thing. So SGLI, good deal. Keep it if you've got it. There is only one other better deal out there in the marketplace. It is with Armed Forces Mutual, but we do not recommend people give up SGLI for Armed Forces Mutual, but you can replace your SGLI with Armed Forces Mutual insurance. And you can also supplement your SGLI insurance with Armed Forces Mutual or other commercial insurance.
So one of the things you mentioned earlier about hazardous duties in the military, is SGLI covered for all career fields, war clauses, you die in combat or anything like that? Are there any limitations that people need to be aware of?
There are a few limitations. They have to do with criminal activity and things like that. But war clause, there is no war clause, meaning it will cover acts of war. Most commercial insurance does not cover acts of war or hazardous occupations. At Armed Forces Mutual, we are specifically chartered for the military and veterans. We also do not have a war clause or aviation clause or that hazardous duty carve out. We will insure people. And in fact, one of the things that we do here that's so important, so near and dear to our heart, is if all of us were applying for insurance together, and Jamie, you called into our member team and said, hey, I just got orders, I'm deploying tomorrow, your policy would be moved to the front of the line. We'd get that insurance in force as fast as we could, because we know you're going into a place and you need the peace of mind faster than I do. I'm coming into the office tomorrow. You're going on deployment tomorrow. We put deploying soldiers at the front of the line, make sure their policies get underwritten in an expeditious manner. So, but absolutely, those carve-outs that you often find in commercial insurance, you really need to be aware of that. You know, there's many people out there now are getting $1 million to $3 million in life insurance. We don't offer that much insurance. So if you need that much insurance, you do need to get some of your coverage from a commercial carrier. What you should use is at least a part of our insurance to be the supplement that does not have the war clause or the aviation clause that would protect you in the case of a deployment or other hazardous occupation.
So, I mean, let's get down to basics. You mentioned there the question, why do we need life insurance? And if you had a chance to talk to a young service member, officer enlisted who just joined, and they're like, look, I mean, I could really use $30 a month. Is this SGLI thing? Do I really need this? I don't have any dependents. What do you say to that person?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's a hard one to answer for the 22-year-old that has no assets and no dependents. Maybe $30 a month is better for them just to put in their pocket. And in fact, I would say don't put it in your pocket, put it in your blended retirement system, start saving it, invest the funds that you're not spending on your other financial needs. But if $30 means that much to you, invest it, save it, invest it. But the way you determine if you need insurance, we try to use an acronym. It's a pretty good acronym. DIME, you need to, consider how much debt do you have? How much debt do you need to pay off if something were to happen to you? Income, how much income do you need to replace for your family in order for them to maintain the quality of life that you currently have for them? Your mortgage, do you want your mortgage to be paid off when you pass away? Does your spouse work, and does that income pay the mortgage, or would you like to be sure that your family has complete peace of mind and that mortgage is paid off? You can cover that with life insurance. And then finally, well, the E in DIME is education. I always tack on an L at the end because I'm an older guy, and now I'm not just worried about debt, income, mortgage, and education. I'm also worried about the legacy that I leave. My kids are through school, but my kids, my family, we know that we want to do things and we want to leave things a certain way in the world that we lived in. And we have certain expectations and things that we want to accomplish for organizations and individuals that we've known throughout our life. Do you also want life insurance to help create that legacy for you if you've not created the wealth yet? So someday, maybe I'll be a wealthy man, but in the meantime, I have life insurance that will cover the legacy that I intend to leave if I have to depart early.
So you mentioned with SGLI that it's good. Sometimes you need a supplement. I think we'll come back to that in a minute. What about anything as I get towards the end of my active duty time or my time in the military, separation or retirement? Is SGLI staying with me forever?
SGLI expires after you leave the military, and I want to say it's 180 days. It might be a little bit longer than that, but it carries for a period of time to give you time to get new life insurance in place. I don't recommend anyone wait until they end term of service, retire, ETS. Don't wait until after your last paycheck to get your new insurance in place. In fact, I would even recommend that people, before their final physical, their final military physical, that they get their life insurance in place. As soon as you know that you have a health condition, you have to report that. And that has to go into the consideration of the risk underwriting that a life insurance carrier is going to take as they underwrite your life insurance. If you don't have any health conditions and you've not finished your out processing physical and those conditions haven't been diagnosed yet, then you can honestly submit your life insurance application before those conditions are known. You're never going to be healthier than you are today. I don't know about you, but I woke up with an extra crick in my shoulder this morning. And, a year ago, I had less trouble running on these knees than I do today. You're never going to be more healthy than you are today. So get your life insurance locked away early. I would say begin that plan 6 to 12 months out. We talk a lot about transition planning. In that 12-month window, when you're in that 12-month window is when you should begin laying in, how much life insurance do I need post-service? And I need to start applying for that insurance now.
And so another time where life insurance might come up, we talk a lot on this podcast about financial independence and maybe becoming work optional one day after the military or before you're 65 or 75 and work until you can't move anymore. So how does something like term life insurance come into consideration, either to replace my military income, like you mentioned, or to help me have some income options for coverage after the military?
Again, it's protection for your family. So life insurance is a bit of a misnomer. It's life insurance covering your life, only pays out after you pass away. So you, by buying life insurance on yourself, are providing that protection, that blanket of protection to your spouse and your loved ones, to the legacy that you're leaving. The reason term insurance is such a high value opportunity, especially for the young service member, it's relatively inexpensive for the amount of insurance that you can get. And so you can get a lot of insurance when you're younger. When you're just getting into a relationship, you've just gotten married, maybe you have a child at home, you've just got a new mortgage. Your mortgage is the biggest it's ever been in your life. You've got a new baby at home, you've got an education to plan for. Buy yourself a good chunk of life insurance. You can do, and there's math steps that we can do to go through that debt, income, mortgage, education, and legacy that we talked about to get you to the amount of life insurance that you probably should get for yourself and have in place while you're building wealth. Eventually, you're going to get to a place where you have disposable income, you're investing more, you're maxing out your blended retirement system, you're maybe making contributions to a Roth IRA. You're realizing that you've got a little extra money at the end of each month, and now it's time to lay in some more permanent protection strategies. And that's when you might consider more term life insurance if you're short on life insurance at that time, or perhaps there's a cash value or whole life policy that is appropriate for your family. At Armed Forces Mutual, when I was a young man, I was a buy term and invest the rest. That was the end of the story on life insurance for me. Buy term, invest the rest. If you're 20 something, 30 something, you can get enough term insurance to cover all your needs and take the delta that you would otherwise be spending on protection and get that invested. Get it into the market, learn how to invest, put it in your blended retirement system, use the TSP, use the tremendous resources out there to help you get started investing and get after it. As you get older, as you collect more assets, as you have more things to protect, as you have a greater legacy and a greater vision of what financial independence looks like for you and your family, I realized I came to AAFMAA and saw that we have a whole life policy here that accumulates cash value. I can pay off the whole life policy within a matter of 7 years. Oftentimes whole life policies pay for your entire life, but I can pay mine in 7 years. It's all done. It's called a paid up policy at that point. It lasts the rest of my life. It has cash value and it's there for a long-term care settlement option as well. So if I get sick, really ill, and my wife doesn't want to dip into our savings, we could start to draw on that life insurance policy to pay monthly bills if I have a terminal illness. So it has some flexibility. It is a whole life policy, and it makes me a member at Armed Forces Mutual for the rest of my life. So I always know if something happens to me, our survivor assistance team will dive right in and help my wife resolve all of my accounts, reconcile all of my benefits, and see that she gets taken care of. I talk about a new layer of peace of mind. It's not just an insurance company. It's a membership-based organization that serves the military and veterans where we stay with the family until everything is reconciled.
For the dime or the dime L method that you were talking about, is there a rule of thumb for each of those categories? Like, do you add it all up, 10x it for like how much coverage you're looking at having, or are you looking at each individual section, or is there a calculator that you can point people to?
Yes, we have a few calculators on our website that you could use. The 10X that you mentioned, Spencer, actually, both of you gentlemen are well read in personal finance, and 10X is a number that people will use. Rather than doing hard math around dime L, they'll just say 10X your income, and that's the amount of insurance. That's the base number that you should just start with. So if you make $100,000, 10X, I need $1 million of life insurance. That's pretty rudimentary, pretty raw, rough math. I mean, how many kids do you have? How many kids are you planning on putting through college? Does your wife work, or does your spouse work or not work? And is that important? Do you live in $1 million house, or do you live in a $200,000 house? Those kind of things. And that's why dime then becomes maybe a slightly more accurate figure. But I would say you just use the raw numbers. How much debt do you want to pay off? How much income do you want to replace? What is the mortgage you want to pay off? And how much money do you want to have in the account for education fund for your loved ones?
So let's say I run the calculator on the website is AAFMAA.com, right? AAFMAA.com. And it says I need, say, $2.1 million of life insurance, but I'm looking at SGLI, it's only $500,000.
Mm-hmm.
What's my next step?
Yep. Your next step is you come to AAFMAA. We'll get you hooked up. You can have up to $1 million of life insurance with AAFMAA in a combination of term and whole life, up to $800,000 in term. And so that's still short of $2.1 million, right? So you will need to go out and secure some commercial insurance as well. And there's a couple of other organizations out there. There's many, many dozens, maybe even hundreds of reputable life insurance companies, but there's a handful of them that are really rock solid around providing quality life insurance and quality service to military members and their families.
So that's one of the ways I became a member, I guess. I'm a member too, and a customer. I was looking at my life insurance needs compared to what I had with SGLI. I also had family SGLI for my wife. And there's some coverage for the children as well, I think, on both policies.
Yep.
But I had to go find more, and I kind of had a hard time with it because a lot of the companies, either they have the war, or I'm a pilot, so I'm flying in combat. That eliminated some companies. And then other companies step up their cost at 5-year increments, or it's a variable rate. And so it made it really kind of unpredictable of how much life insurance would be for me.
I mean, as a pilot, you did have a hard time finding insurance. And when you did find insurance, you paid extra for it. You know, I'm a field artilleryman. My life insurance cost exactly what your life insurance cost here at Armed Forces Mutual, right? Because we don't have those exclusions there. But as soon as you stepped out to commercial insurance and you're a pilot and I'm a financial services person, you're going to pay more for the exact same amount of life insurance with that commercial carrier. Nothing wrong with that. Everyone's trying to manage their risk. I mean, that's why that happens. That's just a fact of the way the industry works. But I think that's a really good example of you used your SGLI. You also picked up the Armed Forces Mutual. You had $1.3 million right there in, no war clause and no aviation clause. So that, got you more than halfway there. That has to have given your family and you personally some peace of mind when you deploy and that kind of thing.
So just one clarification there. So the strategy here for protection is that I'm basically stacking insurance policies on top of each other, and company A doesn't know or care what I have with company B, and company B doesn't care about SGLI. Each one kind of stands alone. And if I have two policies plus SGLI, they could potentially all pay out for a covered death. Is that the strategy I'm trying to build?
That is true. You got to be careful if you overinsure yourself. I can't recall the term of it right now, but there are people that go out and game the insurance industry and stack an unnecessary amount of insurance, and that would be called into question. But if, a reasonable amount of insurance, and can be a big gray area, for some people that look just like you, Jamie, it might be $2.1 million for one family, and your next door neighbor might say his number is $4.7 million. No one's going to dispute that. But if your next door neighbor went out and got $47 million of life insurance, it probably would be questioned about how much life insurance they got and that kind of thing. So anyway, as long as you're, a reasonable person, and insurance companies expect you to buy extra insurance to fill the gap is what we call it.
Yeah, I know like on the auto insurance side, or I'm trying to think of the umbrella insurance and property and casualty insurance. A lot of times you need to be careful about making sure that you're just insuring with one issuer, because if you don't, then all of a sudden they're going to get into, if you do have a claim, they're going to be battling it out with each other because they're like, well, no, you pay it. No, you pay it. But with life insurance, you don't have that problem because, first of all, thankfully, life insurance has a very unlikely payout, especially if you're young and you're buying term life insurance. And then secondly, yeah, it's like with the SGLI, that's the United States government stepping up there. Armed Forces Mutual, they can come in and up to $800,000 of term life insurance. And then you could go to another organization as well and supplement there. Before you know it, it could be covered up to, $2 or $3 million, which is, going to cover many scenarios. And, for most military families, that's probably going to be sufficient to, fulfill all those requirements, the debt, the mortgage, and the education and the income that you'll need to cover in case you lose the primary income earner in the family.
Yeah, and something Jamie mentioned just a second ago, Spencer, is that he also got insurance for his spouse and insured that secondary breadwinner, or, in this day and age, they're both primary breadwinners, right? In the American family, in the American household, two incomes are necessary to live the lifestyle that many Americans want to live. And therefore, both incomes are just as important. Might not be the same amount, but both incomes are just as important. And so it is important for families, so the service member with SGLI is covered. And as I indicated, there's a rider there for the spouse. It's $100,000. But if the spouse is working outside of the home and bringing in a substantial part of the income, or, my spouse did extraordinary things to help our military family maintain the lifestyle that we had, kept the house in order and would live alone for months on end in various locations. That is very high value. And in order to replace that kind of standard of living for my children, if something had happened to her, we needed sufficient coverage for our spouse. And it was really important to balance those numbers. And you just do the numbers almost the same way as we talked about, the debt, income, mortgage, and education legacy that you want to leave for each individual.
Yeah, we thought too about all the things that when my wife has been in and out of work, part-time, full-time, as we moved around. But even if it's a traditional stay-at-home parent, think about the driving, you need nanny, you need house stuff, you need cooking stuff. And like, how would I replace that if I had single parent duties? So that's why we wanted to make sure we had plenty of extra coverage for my spouse, whether she's working or not. even if my income covered our household, because I would have to replace those tasks around the house even. So even a secondary parent or a primary caregiver, depending on how you want to phrase it, would still sometimes benefit from life insurance because of all the duties that they do.
Yeah, that's a really important shout out, and especially for the population we serve. I've got about 100,000 members here. These are military families, typically very young military families, just beginning to build their career and create wealth and raise their family and so on. And we overlook some of the intrinsic value of what we ask our families to do because we just think it's second nature. It's just how it works in the military. You issued me a rucksack, you issued me a family, however you want to metaphorically talk about that. But what we know what we know in real life is that our families, our spouses and children do so much in order to allow us to succeed in the military. We should not lose sight of the value that they provide to the family and the well-being of the family, and we should protect that.
Just a quick note from one of our sponsors, and we'll be right back to the show. Hey, Spencer, I've heard about this free Amex Platinum card for military service members. Where can I go to learn more about this?
Great question, Jamie. I've got the Ultimate Military Credit Cards course at militarymoneymanual.com/UMC3. It's a 100% free email-based course, and I explain exactly how to verify your eligibility for credit card annual fee waivers with the Military Lending Act, or MLA, and the Servicemembers Civil Relief Act, or SCRA. The Ultimate Military Credit Cards course is a beginner's guide to travel hacking and opening up your first annual fee-waived credit card while you or your spouse serves in the U.S. military. There's no spam, no fluff, and the only emails you'll get from me are related to military credit cards. You can unsubscribe at any time, and there's zero cost to you to sign up. You can sign up right now for free at militarymoneymanual.com/UMC3. Again, militarymoneymanual.com/Uniform Mike Charlie 3.
And now back to the show. With your National Guard time, are there differences for Guard and Reserve service members for SGLI? Are they only covered when they're on orders or anything like that they need to be aware of?
Nope. Kind of a cool benefit is that now, dollar for dollar, I pay more, quote unquote, more for my $500,000 SGLI because I'm going to only get paid for 3 or 4 or 5 days of duty that month. And the same $34 is coming out of my check for my $500,000 life insurance. But I'm covered 24/7, regardless of what I'm doing. And it is sweeping coverage with rare exceptions, that SGLI will pay out.
Jerry, how about a success story? So, sometimes when people hear about, life insurance, they might be thinking, oh, well, it would take weeks to pay out, or like, is the money actually there? When my spouse, God forbid, had to go file the paperwork, make the claim. Can you kind of take us through, like, what's the support system and what are the actual logistics if you end up as a Gold Star widow?
We deal with that each and every day. We're paying out policy claims every day. Last year, we paid 1,100 different death claims for a total of about $70 million out to, 1,400 different beneficiaries or so. Those are kind of some rough numbers. But year in and year out, we're paying out tens of millions of dollars of life insurance to families. Oftentimes, these are folks that have aged and they've died of natural causes, and we're paying out life insurance that they've held for years and years with us. But sometimes there's a training accident. You hear about them from time to time, and a soldier will perish. One of our exclusive services that we offer, we call it Survivor Assistance Services, and it's a hallmark service that we provide. And we have a team of people here that take in the death claim call, and they stick with that widow throughout the claim process. So they'll take in the call, probably sometimes those initial calls are 30 minutes long. Sometimes they're 3 hours long. You can imagine the family is distraught at that point. It's a very emotional time for the family. And we have specially trained people that help that family. And so that SAS coordinator or survivor assistance coordinator will be that family's representative all the way through, and they will coordinate their VA claim. If they had a VA benefit or if they had retiree benefits, they would work with DFAS to turn off their retiree benefits. They'd ensure that they got dependents and indemnity compensation if that was due to them. They would help them get their arrears of pay squared away. They would even ensure they have the information they need for burial information at Arlington or another federal cemetery. That's what our team does. We keep those families. Those families remain in our database. And so a widow from 3, 4, 5 years ago can call us and say, I think I missed something, or I don't think I got a benefit that I was due. Our team will reopen the file and verify that we've reconciled everything for them. Or what we also do for our families is we have a member center, and they put all of their life insurance policies in there. And we will help contact all the life insurance companies to begin the policy claim process for that family in all the life insurance companies. That's not something you should expect from any other life insurance company. That is why I am a member at Armed Forces Mutual for Life with my whole life policy. My wife's going to get all the life insurance she has coming to her. She's going to get everything reconciled for her. She's going to get help getting me shuttled off to the cemetery and all that stuff. So that's why we call it a Hallmark service, is because it's near and dear to our heart. Years ago, dozens of years ago, actually probably decades ago, the Army Mutual Aid Association, an officer of the company used to carry a check to the widow and hand the check to the widow. Times have changed. We can't do that. We have members coast to coast, worldwide even. So we don't deliver checks like that, but we do deliver those checks overnight. We do deliver those checks in well over 50% of the time. We are paying out the claim in under 30 days, well over 50% of the time. As long as we have a completed claim form, we're able to get that family satisfied with their claim very quickly. We even have an exception method if the family is in financial difficulty. We will pay a portion of the claim immediately so that they have money to fly to a location that they need to get to, or bring a son or daughter home from a distant location. And then we'll continue to work the claim and pay the full claim again, more than half the time in under 30 days.
That's really a little quicker than I expected. That's cool to hear. Back in episode 36, we talked about legacy planning for military families on this podcast, and having a legacy box, a physical box, something on Google Drive. What are some things that I can do to help set up my family for success? As I refer to it as like my final act of love, like designating beneficiaries, listing phone numbers, like you mentioned. Are there any tips like that?
Jamie, you're talking my language. We've built a military survivor planning checklist. I would love it if your listeners would just go to AAFMAA.com, hit the subscribe button. Once you subscribe, you'll have access to our quote unquote behind the paywall. Subscription is free. We call it subscription so that you know that you're giving us your email information so that we know who you are, so you can have access to our exclusive material. But for instance, this document, the military survivor planning checklist, is available for families. This document, this actual paper document, sits in my little file folder. Everyone in my family knows that it's an orange file folder. They go to this file folder. It's got everything they need. And this is in there. It's got the phone number to AAFMAA on it. It's got the initial steps that people have to do. It also is your checklist, Jamie, the kind of things that you should do maybe once a year. Go over that checklist. Did your bank accounts change? Has your life insurance actually changed, or your life insurance needs changed? Did you buy a new policy or get rid of a policy? Those things should be updated so people aren't surprised by what is or is not there. So you should do that review about once a year, and this is a pretty handy checklist. If you simply subscribe at AAFMAA.com, you'll have access to all those checklists, all of our calculators, and we want you to use them. Whether you're a full member with a life insurance policy or not, we are here because we serve the military veterans and their families, and we make that financial education and those survivor resources available to families because that's the right thing to do.
So I'm just a little curious on the nonprofit structure of Armed Forces Mutual. So is it set up as a 501c3 or?
Pretty sophisticated, Spencer, yeah. digging into our numbers. Oh my gosh. I'm glad you didn't. Did you look at my background like this? Oh my gosh. No, I should be okay. This might blow your mind a little bit. So many of your listeners and the three of us certainly know what a 501c3 is. It's a nonprofit organization. They take in donations and they use those donations to help carry out their mission. Armed Forces Mutual is a 501c23. It is a very special designation. And when you read the tax code, what a 501c23, it's an organization founded before 1880. We were founded in 1879 for the exclusive use of military and veterans. There are two organizations in existence today that qualify as 501c23. We're both headquartered on Fort Myer. We're certainly proud of our designation and we honor it. We are not allowed to take donations. We are fully funded through insurance premiums. And so we are an organization made up of members from the military, and we pay our policies out to members of the military. So this is the military helping the military. This is the classic case of, that legacy giving, that long-term, the tribes that we're a part of, the communities that we will forever be a part of because of our military service. This is just another one of those associations that keeps me connected to my community for the remainder of my life. So as a 501c23, we do have a tax-exempt status, and it allows us to pay. First of all, our premiums are very, very low. You can actually buy term insurance with us that's less expensive than SGLI. I highly recommend SGLI. It's a high-quality term life policy. If you need more term insurance, you should absolutely look at our term insurance. And we're able to offer that very affordable term policy because of our tax-exempt status. I don't have shareholders and I don't have the IRS that I have to pay, but I do have a requirement to get all that money back to the military and the members that we serve. So we do have capital requirements like any insurance company would. We have risk-based capital calculations that we go through, and we have a Hardy capital account. You can look at our annual meeting notes and you can see our annual report, and you can see the financial capability of AAFMAA. We're solid, we're strong, we've paid every claim just as planned because we are well capitalized, and we're here for the next 146 years as well.
Learn something new every day. Never heard of that before. Hey, Jerry, I was just looking at the checklist you mentioned. I'm going to download it and add it to my my legacy box in my folder in Google Drive. We hear these horror stories about beneficiary designation sometime where, the ex-boyfriend or the ex-husband, ex-wife is on their virtual record of emergency data or their notification or their SGLI. Does stuff like that matter for private insurance, whether AAFMAA or another commercial policy as well?
Absolutely does. Those nightmare stories are real. All of us, that, once you get your life insurance, it's really kind of you can almost put it away and not think about it again, make sure the payments are being made and everything's good to go, right? But if anything changes in your life, if your beneficiaries are changing, you have new babies, normally that will be taken care of. If I got my insurance and I had my daughter and then my son came along and he wasn't on the beneficiary list, it would probably, depending on how I had written it, he probably would have been included. But it's always just better to go ahead and update your beneficiary form. That goes the same for later on in life. Many of your listeners are going to be thinking about, do they need a trust and what are they writing in their will? And maybe they have gone through a divorce, or maybe they've adopted a child, or maybe they have an exceptional family member that needs special care. Those kind of things really need to be taken into account, and you need to think that through about how your beneficiary form, I almost consider it an extension of your estate plan. Life insurance policy is a financial product, right? But the beneficiary form tells what's going to happen with that financial product. And that beneficiary form truly, the way I view it in my estate plan is those beneficiary forms are a part of that estate plan. And this is how the assets are being distributed. So ex-wives, remarried, very unfortunate story. Maybe in your unit, Jamie, and I don't know if you experienced this, Spencer, when you were on active duty, but it certainly happened when I was on duty. We would have to fill out our SGLI form every year. We had to sign it, right? And acknowledge that we really wanted it. And we really meant that we were going to have this insurance and check the block for our beneficiary. In my last battalion command, I had a soldier die. We weren't on duty. Something had happened. An extraordinary accident had happened, and he passed away. Literally a week before he was at drill, he was supposed to fill out his SGLI form. He did not. And therefore, they didn't know. It took months to reconcile who the beneficiary of his SGLI was. It's because he hadn't done the form right, and then he didn't take the time to do the form. It's like managing your check register. It's like making sure you know your password to your 401k. It's that important, and you should really treat it as such.
When those accidents happen or when deaths happen on active duty, the death gratuity, which they need to workshop the name, that's a horrible name, but the military death gratuity, that's $100,000 tax-free one-time lump sum payment. And depending on how quick the casualty affairs office is, that can be in the spouse or the designated, the next of kin's bank account, within less than a week usually. In addition to the SGLI, in addition to using Armed Forces Mutual or Navy Mutual or another commercial insurance carrier, that's another benefit too, that you just make sure that when you're talking to your spouse about kind of the plan, the estate plan, just mention that like, hey, this is a benefit that you would have access to, and make sure that it's going to be the last thing on your mind when, if the unthinkable happens, but it is there to just kind of help you get through those initial couple of weeks and months before you can start cleaning things up.
I got to emphasize this point that you just made, Spencer, and that is I just finished drilling a few months ago, retired last month, but I'd show up at drill once a month and I'd have a short list of soldiers that hadn't finished their administrative paperwork. And the administrative paperwork is the stuff I always wanted to get out of the way quick so I could go do my artillery stuff, right? But some soldiers didn't prioritize it that way. I've got to emphasize what Spencer's talking about right there is for military families, take care of your admin paperwork. Spouses, your service members is working his or her tail off day in and day out. It's okay. Ask them about the administrative paperwork. Ask them to put one in the file. Just bring it home and build the file for them. Whatever it takes to help your family feel that peace of mind and know that you've kind of checked those blocks on those very, very important things, those power of attorneys, the living wills, the DD-93, and the allocation of payments and arrears and that kind of thing that Spencer was mentioning.
Because that's one of the barriers, I think, for people to take care of stuff, for them to sign up for life insurance or research it, is just the time commitment. And I think there's some other misconceptions and maybe myths out there that we can talk about as well. But what does the process look like? Is it really that hard? Am I going to have to go drive to the hospital and get a blood test? And like, is that barrier of I don't have time to sign up for life insurance something that we can get rid of?
It still exists in some cases. The less healthy you are, the more health requirements are going to need to be collected as the insurance carrier underwrites the health risk, okay? But if you're generally healthy, if you're a pilot, all right, if you're on flight status at Armed Forces Mutual, we know you're probably one of the top classes of our rating classes. I don't just want to single out pilots. There's many, many healthy people in the military because of the military. We work out 3 to 5 times a week. No other discrete population does that in America, but in the military we do. You have a high propensity of being healthy and ready and able. Just this year, we implemented here at Armed Forces Mutual an expedited underwriting process and it was really, really cool to watch. One day, a gentleman came in, applied for our insurance on a Saturday. No one was in the office, so it was all being done online. Our automated underwriting process ran the policy through, gave him an approval on that Saturday, no manual intervention. On Monday, our team came in, we verified everything was correct, and we issued that policy the next day. That's an exception. That doesn't always happen, but you can get $800,000 of insurance, and there's many modern insurance companies out there that are issuing policies very, very quickly. We also have a $100,000 policy that just takes 3 questions and either you're in or you're out, and you can have $100,000 supplemental insurance just like that. That's truly designed for those families that have that barrier, that mindset that this is too hard, it's going to take me forever. You can apply for insurance, what we call it our simple term product. You literally fill out the application, you answer 3 questions, and the expedited underwriting system that we have kind of does the work behind the scenes, and you know your answer within a day or 2. And that's a common thing. The one case was an extraordinary case, but simple term is decisioned in a day or 2 here at AAFMAA. But that's only for $100,000. But it gets you a little bit of a supplement, especially if you've been, you need life insurance. Many Americans are underinsured. This is one way to get started. And you get to know your organization that way too. You can see how they perform. You can assess our customer service. You can assess whether or not we're the kind of company that you want to be a part of for many years to come and that kind of thing. So those are some options.
Okay, so another barrier I hear sometimes, maybe a mindset is, I'm young, I'm healthy, I don't have dependents yet. Is there any advice for someone in that situation where you mentioned it's cheaper now? Is that something to just go ahead and do for the cost savings? Or what would you say to someone with that barrier?
If you're unmarried and you have no assets, you don't need any additional life insurance. It's just a fact. And you might not need the full $500,000 SGLI life insurance. You should have a little something. Somebody's going to need to take care of your remains if something happens to you. So if you're very young, no assets, they might be right. When I first realized I needed life insurance, I was about 27 years old. I had just gotten married. My wife was pregnant with our first child, and I had my first mortgage. I knew I needed life insurance. And at that moment, I knew and I did lock away a 30-year level term policy. It's still in existence today. My kids are both grown and gone. This policy is like outlived. And Spencer, earlier in the broadcast, you talked about, their term insurance, doesn't often pay out. I'm okay that this term insurance didn't pay out. First of all, I've been paying pennies for it for 30 years, and it gave me and my family so much peace of mind. So lock it away. As soon as you know you need some, go ahead and get some. And it's term insurance. You can get a lot for pretty little amount of money. Get a little extra on the front end and secure your family, protect your family.
Great place to wrap it up there, Jerry. Where can people find you and your organization? What's the best place for them to go?
You got to come to AAFMAA.com. That's AAFMAA.com. Or just simply Google Armed Forces Mutual and you will find us. Join us on LinkedIn, Instagram, subscribe on our website and start to consume some of our financial education and other financial resources. Talks about your benefits and other things that you have access to as military veterans and retirees. We know that many of the people that are members of ours have found value in that. We think that all military members can benefit from the stuff that we have out on our website. So please come join us. If I could, Spencer, just mention one other thing, our career accession program loan. For those people that are advancing in their career, they maybe have just gotten their commission or they just got out of flight school, they need new uniforms, whatever the case might be. Maybe they just finished their advanced individual training and they're going on to their first permanent duty station. They've got extra expenses. Our career cap loan, we'll just call it the cap loan, it is a 2.5% fixed rate, $5,000 loan. You pay it back over 60 months, one flat payment each month. The only requirement is that you have a life insurance policy with us. So if you need a life insurance policy supplement anyway, get your life insurance supplement with Armed Forces Mutual. Pick up your cap loan at the same time. You'll get the least expensive signature consumer loan in the marketplace right here from Armed Forces Mutual. It's military members lending military members funds. It's all part of the network, and we do it for a reason to help our warfighters succeed early in their careers. So I hope that's helpful to your audience.
I think that will be, Jerry. That's fantastic. That kind of sits in one of those USAA or Career Star loan or Navy Federal Career Kickoff loan. And then for the enlisted out there, if you do get into dire straits and you need some kind of loan, there are lots of options available to you from the Army Emergency Relief Society, the Air Force Aid Society, and then the Marines and the Navy and the Coast Guard all have similar programs as well. The last resource I want to leave you with, listener, is if you're listening to this and because unfortunately you have to get a crash course in life insurance, I want to point you to Daniel Kopp. He's a friend of the podcast, a certified financial planner, and a widower himself. He is the founder of Wise Stewardship Financial Planning. He's been on a couple of the podcast episodes with us. He also has his own podcast at Military to Financial Planner Podcast. And he is the CFP expert on all things for military widows and military widowers. If you're listening to this podcast and you're in dire straits and you need some help, he is the person I told my wife to contact if she ever needs help navigating the process after a death on active duty. With that, Jerry, thanks again so much for all the wisdom, the life insurance knowledge you dropped on us this episode. And I think we're going to have you back. I got some more questions for you written down here. But thanks again.
All right. Thank you, Spencer. Great to talk to you today. Take care.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Military Money Manual podcast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. This helps others find the show, and we really appreciate it. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
The views and opinions presented here are those of the speakers and do not necessarily represent the views of the DoD or its components. Reference to any commercial products or services does not constitute DoD endorsement of those products or services.